Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Grandinetti. I'm Chief Marketing and Corporate Strategy Officer with Reduxio. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedules to join us this afternoon for the first in what will be an ongoing series, which will be an opportunity to take a look at Reduxio through the eyes of our users. And we're very excited to be inaugurating our series with Jorge Barreto, who is an enterprise architect at BFL Canada, a large insurance and financial services company with offices across Canada. So this will be our second webinar that we've done with Bright Talk, and our objective will continue to be the same throughout this series, right? In addition to being Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer at Reduxio, I've also been a professor of innovation and entrepreneurship at institutions including MIT and the Holt International Business School for many years. And in this role, I'm wearing a dual hat because what we really want to do more than anything is provide you with objective and rich information from deeply technical people that will allow you to, one, understand what some of the most innovative approaches are to addressing the data challenge that I'm sure all of you are facing today, and at the same time getting a sense of how a variety of use cases are being handled by a real user in today's world. So this will be a fairly quick session. It's targeted only for 30 minutes, and I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes providing some context on what Reduxio does. It's not intended to be a sales pitch in any way. It's just to provide you a bit of background on our unique approach to addressing the data challenges. And then the majority of our time today will be spent with me moderating a fireside chat with Jorge Barreto from BFL Canada. So as you probably are all too aware, the need for rapid recovery of data for near zero RPO and RTO data is becoming more critical all the time. And unfortunately, given the way that systems have evolved over the last 20 plus years, it's become an increasingly difficult challenge to address. Reduxio decided to do something about that and threw out the playbook in terms of what storage architecture has looked like for the last 20 plus years, and decided to create a layer of abstraction between the storage systems and the data. And what we essentially did is we built a time machine for your data so that you could go back to any second in time in a very granular way and be able to recover that data with near zero RPO and RTO. Now, it's easy for me to say, but I'd rather let some subject matter experts say it on behalf of Reduxio. So I would imagine that most of you recognize the iconic names that are on this slide. 3 or 4 of the most respected IT industry analyst firms in the world. Forrester calls Reduxio one of 3 vendors disrupting the integrated secondary storage and data protection space. Okay, and talk about the fact that we've been able to converge both primary and secondary storage management to a single platform. Gartner has deemed us a leading vendor of continuous data protection, both in their storage and their business continuity and IT resilience hype cycles. Frost & Sullivan awarded us the 2017 Data Storage and Management Innovation Award of the Year. And IDC went on to talk about how we are reducing cost and complexity for many organizations. Okay? So in addition, of course, there are a number of very serious IT journalists who cover the space, and Reduxio has been named one of the top storage companies in the world by Network World. We won a Product of the Year award from Storage Magazine. We won a Product of the Year award from TechTarget. And so we've gotten some pretty good recognition from key opinion leaders and industry experts, but the most important recognition is from our over 200 customers. We are a global company. We've got operations across North America, across Europe and the Middle East. And we would encourage you to take some time to come to our website under the Customer tab and look at many of the videos, the case studies, the customer testimonials, the press releases, and the articles, where customers from many industries, many kinds of companies and sizes of companies are sharing their thoughts. We'd also send you to the independent peer-reviewed website called IT Central Station, which I like to call Yelp for Geeks. We've got almost 20 customer reviews now on IT Central Station. These are fairly in-depth reviews. And Reduxio was rated the highest the highest of any storage vendor in the industry. So that being said, now let's get into the real purpose of today's discussion. And let's spend a few minutes today with Jorge Barreto. George, welcome, and thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. Would you be kind enough maybe just to start off and take our audience through a little bit of your career history and background, and then what it is that you're doing today at BFL Canada?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. Thank you, Reduxio, for having me. BFL Canada as a whole is one of the largest Canadian employee-owned and operated risk management insurance company. We provide coast-to-coast services ranging from employee benefits to risk management and benefits consulting services. My background has always been in virtualization, focused largely in VMware, but have worked extensively with large Hyper-V farms, deploying different types of clouds, leveraging separate solutions. And what really drove us to really drive the position with Reduxio was the fact that you're completely offloading painstaking time-consuming tasks down to junior level staff, and the ability to really have control of our data and where it resides, whether it be in the public cloud, private cloud, or our own cloud, given the functionality that was released with Reduxio and TypicalPOC.
And George, I'm looking forward to getting into the details, but if we step back, right, we look at your company. It's a company with a very long and proud history in Canada, right? It was born in the 1800s. And yet, despite that, you've got an incredibly bleeding-edge infrastructure that you are managing. And it's a highly virtualized infrastructure. Can you go into some detail and share with our audience what the infrastructure is that you're working with today?
Yeah, certainly. So we are running a ESXi VMware by VMware. We're completely virtualized. We're 100% VDI. We are on Windows 10, and we've been on Windows 10 since November of last year. That was one of our biggest projects. Our entire platform is running the Cisco UCS Unified Platform, leveraging Reduxio directly connected to our Fabric interconnect, which allows to have way below sub-millisecond latency and really improved several tasks that are happening in our environment. We run Horizon on over 1,000 desktops, Horizon View from VMware, and we run linked clones on Windows 10.
Okay. And in your role as architect, I imagine, a very important part of what you do is to make sure that you're staying very current with regard to the infrastructure and tools needed to keep the bank's, IT operations sort of at the forefront of the industry. So as you were out looking for, sort of the next generation of capabilities, how was it that Reduxio came across your radar screen?
Literally through several publications, VMware World. I've been following Reduxio for quite some time, and it looked like it was, and it has proven to in our environment that it is mature enough to be played running our live production data, and not only running it, but running it very well, and giving us the ability to leverage our old existing hardware to replicate that data too and manage it.
So can you talk about that? So it was not a rip and replace operation, but an extension. So how did that work? How did that all work?
So what happened was we were running a legacy Nimble system, now by HP. Reduxio, with the TypicalPOC capabilities, reduced the management overhead that we had to take at protecting and doing backups on our virtual machines from a snapshotting perspective. We were running intraday snapshots 4 times a day. However, that was just not enough recovery scenarios for certain aspects that may happen, like malware or ransomware. With Reduxio, it really gave us the ability to turn back in time, if you really want to call it that, any point in time for any of our virtual machines and achieve a desired state from that point in time within the windows and configuration that we set up based on our stringent requirements for compliancy reasons.
All right. So is this a common approach that you take? You're sort of constantly scouring the environment, identifying, emerging vendors, emerging approaches, keeping an eye on them until you get to a point where you're personally comfortable that they've gotten to a level of maturity that, will not put you at undue risk within your infrastructure? Because it sounds like
100%.
Okay. And what's amazing, George, is that it sounds like in this instance, more often than not, a lot of our customers find out about Reduxio through their value-added partners, their MSPs or their CSPs or their VARs. But it sounds like in this instance, you actually were the person who had communicated the capabilities to your partner, Cognos Systems. Is that an accurate understanding?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. And is that something that you tend to do on a regular basis as well?
Yeah, it's important to pass off information, especially with worthwhile software and hardware, that is actually alleviating a lot of tasks that should be just day-to-day now. And that is why, MSPs and everyone else should be looking at this because of the huge value that it can bring.
Okay. So it sounds like, based on your background, right, you've got a lot of experience in the DR and the business continuity space. Where does Reduxio fit in, right? Because that's the province of very high-end and often extremely expensive systems. So where does Reduxio fit into that domain? And where does it most provide value to you?
It gives us the ability to select our specific journal histories that are required and mandated by compliance departments, and it gives us the ability to just, hey, here it is, these are the volumes, if you want this level of protection, no problem, and it replicates to a target Reduxio across to our secondary data center, which we can bring up live instant copies at any point in time to localize the data and minimize network transmission. Okay. So listen, you're obviously a very serious guy. I know that you are one of a very small number of sort of VMware, VCDX, experts, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But as you think about, now taking on the risk of introducing a new vendor into your infrastructure, not surprisingly, you went through a proof of concept. Can you talk a little bit about what you were hoping to learn in that POC and what the experience was in managing that POC? Yeah, the POC process was absolutely easy to do. The racking of the equipment, the booklet that comes in with it, with the detailed instructions, completely followed it. I didn't even have any support requests or required it for any time while setting it up. The migration process was completely autonomous. We did use No Migrate, which was a feature that really helped maintain certain applications, and administrators can really attest to this, is to minimize having to do downtime work during nighttime and having to spend, painstakingly working at nighttime at peak hours during off hours to perform these tasks without affecting business operations. That seriously alleviated that side for us and gave us the ability to migrate over 30 terabytes in over a span of 5 or a week's time.
Yeah, and based on your common experience, what would be a more typical amount of time to have something like that work?
Typically, it takes about 3 to 5 weeks to just even get all that stuff going. The high configuration, the high-end configuration of jumbo framing and taking advantage of the hypervisor connections and the multipassing that you guys have configured was very simple to use with the pre-configured scripts that your support team presented. So that made that high-end configuration very, very painstakingly easy and simple.
Right. That's great. So let's talk a little about I know an accomplishment that you're proud of. It's a relatively unique accomplishment. You have a VMware Design Expert certification, which makes you only one of about 350 people in the world that have actually completed that certification process. Can you just talk us through a little bit about what was required to do that and what it enables you to do in your daily job?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the biggest accomplishments of my career is definitely that degree, and with that it came a very hard and stringent defense period,
Yeah.
and essentially had 6 panelists go and validate my design to kind of see if it was up to snuff with VMware's best requirements, and that was a very difficult process, but it was well worth the while. Very, very largely focused around the VMware ecosphere and how to leverage different tools and technologies that are employed and showing your mastery over those solutions.
All right, that's great. And with regard to obviously being a VMware global expert now, where does Reduxio bring the most value into your VMware environment? What are some of the key use cases that it helps you address?
Dev automation processes, being able to, in a very, very fast, efficient manner, create brand new copies of data without using any of our production storage, because our devs are just reading data. So the value that it provides is I can have multiple teams that are geographically separated hitting different data centers to access data faster with Reduxio.
Okay, that's great. So, George, before we open this up to our audience, just are there any other key points that you want to make? Any questions I should have asked you that I didn't, or anything that you want to further elaborate on? And it doesn't mean our discussion's over, but I want to at least give the chance to our audience to start throwing some questions your way if they've got them at this point, since we've been going for about 17, 18 minutes now.
No problem. Yeah, no, I'm open to any questions that they may have on how Reduxio, alleviated a lot of those painstaking tasks, and I'd be open to any suggestions or questions, actually.
So as we await questions, I just want to make sure that the audience knows there are 3 attachments and links that we're providing as a way to complement this great technically rich discussion with George. We've got a case study from a manufacturing company out of Connecticut, LineMaster, a fairly detailed case study in PDF format. We've got an overview of how to recover a virtual machine using Reduxio backdating, something that George has spoken about at some length, but a document for you to be able to download. And then a more comprehensive booklet about what some of the core capabilities that Reduxio provides and use cases it addresses. So at this point, I'm going to just take another 15 seconds and see if we have any questions, any thoughts, comments from our audience. All right, so George, let's continue then. Talk about where we go from here, right? What are some of the next steps for your infrastructure as we move forward? Obviously, you're sitting on some very confidential information as a financial services company. We're living in this insanely risky world of daily cyber attacks. How do you think about protecting your users, your organization, your clients from what appears to be just nonstop continuous attacks today?
It's a forever evolving landscape. The hackers out there are doing their due diligence, so we as well have to adapt. And Winston Churchill said it best: to improve is to change, to be perfect is to change often. So it's always about making sure you have proper securities and safeguards in place that can get your data back and running with application consistency and granularity to restore to a recoverable time should an event like that happen, to minimize the monetary exposure to your organization.
Okay, so I assume this is something that you are thinking about top of mind all day, every day. This is just something that is truly permanent in your brain.
Correct. It has to
now,
be.
Can we talk about Cognos Systems? So obviously Cognos Systems is a partner of yours, a partner of Reduxio's. Can you talk a bit about what Cognos Systems is able to help you with in their day-to-day business?
Yeah, Cognos Systems is able to offer disaster recovery and business continuity solutions and architecture. And also, as Reduxio's only and Canadian partner as a disaster recovery solution designer. Cognos Systems obviously has very well validated engineers on staff, has the ability to design high in-depth technical landscapes and really take a piece of that environment, of the consulting customer's environment, and really understand it and apply real-world usage case models to alleviate all of their pains.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Well, listen, what I'm going to recommend is we've been at this for 20 minutes. I don't see any questions from the audience. I'm going to ask Eyal. I'm seeing a 5-star interesting info comment, so thank you for whoever sent that our way. But at this point, if I don't have any more questions, I think it's a good time to just wrap it up. I think we've covered the territory that we wanted to cover. George, if there's anything else you want to add, by all means, would love to have you have the last word.
Yeah, no, for me is the reason why I was accepted to do this is because the product does save me a lot of time and does give me peace of mind that I can recover to any point in time that is required due to the business processes within our company. So anybody looking to achieve that level of granularity should look at Reduxio because it is a top contender in the space now.
All right, George, I cannot thank you enough. I know how busy you are, and I appreciate you carving out some time, not just for Reduxio, but for our audience and the Bright Talk community today. And for everybody on the line, we will be making an archived version of this webinar available to you, both via email and through our website. One last time, George, thank you very much for sharing your expertise with our audience today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, take care now.
Take care.